This is Real Life with Deb Waterbury, a real show for real people with real issues. And now, here's your host, Dr. Deb Waterbury.
Welcome to this episode of Real Life with Deb Waterbury. And I am joined today by Dee.
Hi.
Dee Dwight. Hey, Dee. So we are just started our new series last week on IDOLS.
Oh.
I know. And it took us a long time to even actually decide to do this because it's so hard to talk about idols. For one thing, we put them in, Karen and I talked about this last time when we actually described what an idol is, kind of set the premise for what we're going to talk about in the next couple of weeks, that we all practice idolatry.
In some form or another.
Yes. And I think because we have this idea of idols being, something, this thing
Right.
that we're looking at, like even a statue or whatever, we don't realize idolatry is just anything that you put above God.
Yeah, so it's kind of independent or personal for each person,
Yes.
or a lot of us are like, no, not
That's
me.
right. So we know that idolatry is, the only idol we should have is God.
Exactly.
Everything else is a false idol. So starting this week and for the next couple of weeks afterwards, what we're going to do is talk about different false idols. Like today we'll talk about image. Next time I think we're going to be talking about money, and then we're going to talk about people. So we're talking about the different kinds of false idols, understanding that we all have an idol. And even if we were wonderful at this, our idol would be God. So, an idol is something that you worship.
Even if we were wonderful.
Yes.
We would be our idol.
I'm wonderful. It's sort of like saying,
Sorry.
I am the most humble person in the world. It kind of is an oxymoron.
See, it's that easy to have an idol and not even know it.
I'm wonderful. I only worship God. That's
Sorry.
Maybe we should. That's good. We probably should have had a false idol of self too. But anyway, these are so. Anytime you're going to have an idol, it should be God. Any other thing you have is false.
Right.
So we want to talk about the three major false idols, which is our image, and then money, and then people.
Okay.
So this week I want to talk about our image.
Darn it.
I know. And I think image is so difficult because it really is about my perception of self.
Right.
But my perception of self is through the eyes of the world. That tends to be where my perception of self lies.
Right.
Is what does the world tell me I should look like? What does the world tell me I should think like? What does the world tell me I should behave like?
Yep.
What kind of friends should I have? How should I be seen? I don't very often, and as I'm talking about humanity, go to what God's perspective is first. So
the fearfully and wonderfully made perspective.
So Dee, how is it that image then can be an idol? How do you know when image is an idol for you?
Before I loved the Lord, I would always try to change this. And I didn't get very far because I would get stuck here.
You wouldn't even get any further than your hair.
Not any further than my hair. And I can almost sense myself sitting on a floor in a mirror hours. And when I say hours, I don't mean 1 or 2. I mean 3 or 4, trying to make it straight.
Which is so crazy because I would give, people pay so much money for this hair, and I would give my eye teeth to have that kind of curl.
But it was the perspective or the image that other people created from when I was a small child because they picked on me because of it or because everybody else had straight hair. And now I am grateful. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. He made this so that people remember me, or so people, it's a way to start oh, honey, I love your hair. Or believe it or not, people just come up and
start touching it. Oh, yes.
But there it is. It's a conversation that I could use that opportunity. He made it this way. So my image is all those years of having that image put on me and wasting time. Lord,
and accepting
hours.
It. And accepting that the world tells me, people have told me my hair is not right. So therefore, if people tell me my hair is not right, I have to change it.
Right.
So your image, I think then what you're saying is that your image becomes your idol when it becomes the source of where you think you're going to find happiness, acceptance, joy, comfort, peace, and all those things.
Where your image becomes your identity.
Yes, your image is your source of your identity. So, and that's truly the end of the story right there.
Done.
That's it. I wrote an entire book about false identity and about, the lies that bind. And you remember chapter 2 is image. Image is everything. Your image is your biggest lie. It's the biggest lie the enemy tells you is that your image is the source of your happiness.
Right.
And that your image comes from what other people see.
And we forget.
Yes.
We are we are his image.
Yes. That's
So I don't care what you other people see. If you don't see Jesus, then either I am not projecting it very well or
Right.
you're missing the point.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So I think that this image being the lie that we believe, that my image is then dictated by the world. I want to it can be very damaging, and I want to get to that in a minute. I want to read a couple of scriptures first about what God says about image, because we really have to start there, Dee. Don't you believe that? And it's not natural for us to do that because the world is going to bombard you. I mean, goodness gracious.
Oh my gosh, the magazines, the pictures, the Facebook,
TV.
the commercials, the everything.
And we've talked about Facebook before. So that's just a snapshot that somebody posed for. That is not
And we
their
won't even
life.
talk about Snapchat or any
Yes, all the filters that you can put on your pictures. I mean, goodness,
You're not real.
I have friends who will not post a picture unless it's been gone through at least 2 or 3 filters. And I'm like, but I don't. Then nobody really knows what you look like.
I felt like lipstick was the only thing required today while we were talking about image. Sometimes I just like, okay, Lord, we did good.
Yes.
But let's paint the barn.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There's a difference between, and I think they're making a good point here, and I need to point this out, a difference between having your image as your idol and then having self-respect and caring about how you appear.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with painting the barn. There's nothing wrong with having your hair fixed, nothing wrong. Lord have mercy, I was raised in the South.
Right.
Mama
A
would
requirement.
Yes, Mama right now can feel disturbances in the force if I don't have mascara on. So that's a cultural thing, and I have that kind of respect, and that's just the way that I present myself. There's nothing
But
wrong
that's
with
the image
that.
of Deb. That's not the
Yes.
image of what 10 other people look exactly
and
like.
I did have to get to the place where it was okay for me to be this because I thought that I had to be something else for so many years, and I had a billion different images depending on who I was with because it was all about believing what they were telling me or what the world was telling me about my image being acceptable.
Oh, we could open up that whole can of worms
sister,
again.
I know. And and it wasn't until the Lord, told me, literally, and this was one of the times I heard, it was my voice I heard, but him speaking to me and said, I created you to be you.
Exactly.
You're obnoxious, you're loud, you like makeup, you have to have your hair fixed. Those things are parts of your personality.
Yes.
And I created you that way. It's okay that you're obnoxious. You just need to be obnoxious for me.
Right.
And accept the fact that this is how I created you.
Right.
And so the fact that I want to wear makeup and want to fix my hair is because this makes me happy and I like it and this is my personality. This is just who I am. I don't have to change that.
Right.
I'm not doing it for anybody else. I'm doing it for me because this is my personality. So it's setting in, worried about your image is because you're worried about what other people are going to think.
Right. And that's what I was thinking. The same thing is like, I am not going to try to look like so-and-so because it's almost saying, God, you didn't do good enough making me like this.
Exactly.
So accept this, accept the nappy hair,
Yes.
accept that we are a little bit loud.
Just a wee bit.
And that's the way he made us.
Right.
So if we think anything else, that this isn't good enough any way that it is, it's like saying, oh, excuse me, Lord, I don't think you did very good here.
That's right.
Would you really say that to him? No.
No. And it doesn't, for those of you wonderful women who don't wear any makeup and look beautiful and don't.
Curse you, no.
We hate you. We never want you to talk to us again. No, that's not it. But that's who you are.
That's how he made you.
That's how he made you. This is your personality. You just shouldn't have to go out and put makeup on and buy clothes that you wouldn't be comfortable in.
Right.
That's not who you are. If you like wearing makeup, if you like fixing your hair, don't go without it because then you feel naked and you're not. It's just because that's not who you are.
Right.
It is about. You're right. You're looking at God and saying, I don't think you did a very good job. I'm going to have to fix this.
Right.
Because nobody else seems to like what you've done. Whereas God's looking at you going, I see only Jesus. And I created you to be you, to manifest Jesus to a world who needs to see him.
Exactly.
And he created you that way purposefully because there's a group of people you need to minister to. And
Exactly.
your personality is required.
I always think that if it's just for one.
Yes. Then
If the way that you are and the way that he made you is to bring one other person into the kingdom.
That's why you were created that way.
Thank
and
you,
that's
Jesus.
the only thing that matters.
Yeah.
So we need to learn to adopt how God sees image.
Yes.
And then accepting how we were created. So one of my favorite passages when we talk about this is, and I'm going to read from here too, is 1 Samuel chapter 16. And we know that this is where Samuel's looking for the next anointed king. And Samuel goes to all the sons and sees all these guys that are strong and should be good kings. And the Lord said to Samuel, do not look on his appearance or on the height of his stature, because I have rejected him. For the Lord sees not as man sees. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart. I mean, that could not be any more clear. It really couldn't. And what couldn't be more clear is that anything the world, he says the world looks on the outward, and they do. The world even will look on the outward of what they want you to do in terms of behavior.
Yeah.
The world will put you in a box and say, you're this, so therefore you have to behave this way.
Oh, and there it is, the therefore. Please don't be compared to the world. Please, I don't want to be compared to the world.
No.
I want to be different. I want to stand out. I don't want to be so heavenly minded that I'm no earthly good. But please don't compare me to that.
Right. Psalm 139:14, and you mentioned this just a second ago. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well.
That's him.
It is, and I am fearfully and wonderfully made. It doesn't matter what the world says about anything else. It is learning to see yourself and your image through the eyes of God.
Doesn't matter what I say.
It
God,
doesn't.
you did good.
Yes, exactly.
Every day I got to wake up, and without getting, crossing the line to where self is that. God, you did good.
Yes, I'm happy with who I am. I'm happy with the way you made me. I think, if we would come to that more often than... There's nothing wrong with self-improvement. Nothing wrong with dieting. Nothing wrong with going to the gym. Nothing wrong with painting.
That's maintaining that temple.
Yes, exactly. There's nothing, 'cause that's health. That's healthy. And the Lord requires us to maintain, to take care of that which He has created.
Yes.
It's when that becomes your obsession to the point where you're doing it because you want to look good to everybody else, or you think you're not good enough. That's not the point. If you are dieting, if you are exercising, if you are painting the barn, if whatever you're doing, getting your hair fixed, getting your nails done, whatever you're doing, if you're doing that to stay healthy, to maintain that which the Lord has given you, that's exactly right.
Exactly.
If you're doing it because you think you're not good enough in the way that you were before you started, then your motivations are becoming skewed, because you're starting to move in the aspect of, I need to look like the rest of the world so that I can be accepted by them. With the Lord, you're already accepted.
And the sad news is if you're doing it so that you are accepted by them, remember, we just read it. He knows your heart.
Yes.
You're doing it to be accepted by them, not because you're worshiping me.
Yes, right.
Hello, Daddy already knows.
Yes, He does. And that is idol worship. You're worshiping your image, because that becomes more important than what He thinks. What everybody else thinks is more important than what He thinks.
If we check our heart, it usually just reveals the motive, and it's kind of check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Yes. And this is an insidious lie.
It's so subtle.
It is so subtle.
It sneaks up. We don't realize it. That's the...
And there seems to be a confusion and a fine line between when I am doing the things I do to maintain the temple, and I'm doing them so that I'm trying to make sure that other people think that I'm wonderful. There is a fine line there, and it is only mentioned in your heart. I mean, it's only going to be revealed, in your heart.
Right.
It's not going to be revealed necessarily, because they can both look the same.
Oh.
It can appear to be the exact same thing, but it's your heart that will, and as you said, Daddy already knows that.
Yep.
Jeremiah chapter 9, verses 23 through 24, thus says the Lord, let not the wise man boast in his wisdom. Let not the mighty man boast in his might. Let not the rich man boast in his riches. But let him who boasts boast in this, that he understands and knows me, that I am the Lord who practices steadfast love, justice, and righteousness in the earth. For in these things I delight, declares the Lord. So let me just put this in perspective right quick. You will
Deb,
one day,
please.
yes, you will one day, all of us will, whether you're a believer or not, you're going to stand before the Lord.
Absolutely.
He is not going to look at you on your physical shape.
He's not going to look at my degrees on the wall.
No, He's not going to care about any of that. He's not going to say, gosh, I wish you'd have dieted a little bit more. You got a little fluff in between,
Why didn't you finish that thing?
Exactly. He's not going to even mention that.
Nope.
What He's going to talk about is, how did you glorify me? How did you delight in me? How did you see me? How did you show me to the world? The rest of this is superfluous, and He will not mention it. So the Lord says, don't regard that As a matter of fact, don't regard your appearance as being your image as a rich person, your image as the mom who has it all together. Because you and I have been talking about physical image. There are other images that we have that we think are more important.
Right.
It can be, I need everybody to think that my children are the smartest, the most talented, the most athletic. I need to make sure everybody thinks that my husband is the one who makes the most money, I live in the best kind of house, and that I have the best friends. I need to make sure everybody sees me as the best minister, the one who worships the best, the one who wears the right clothes. I need to see people that I got my hands in the air because I am so holy. These are images. And when we it doesn't have to be your physical image.
Right.
God is not going to talk to you about any of that stuff. He wants to know, how is it that you delighted in me? How did you show the world me? So we have to be so careful in doing the things, because as I said, they'll still, if you're doing them for the Lord or you're doing them because of your own image, they can appear on the outside to be the same thing. They will look the same. You have to look at your heart. Why am I worshiping to the high heavens in church? Am I worshiping to the high heavens with my hands raised and singing all the songs and getting on my knees? Am I doing that because I'm truly in my heart worshiping the Lord?
Or do I want other people to see me
or am I doing
it?
that because Susie Sue is sitting next to me and I need her to see how holy I am? I mean, honestly, these are questions you've got to ask yourself, because if your motivations are, it's about motivation. And where your motivations are will determine whether or not your image is an idol.
Yes.
And this is a big deal. I mean, that's not having any other God before God is number one on the whole 10 commandment list.
Right.
So because it is there, you better realize that having no other Lord before me, that's what God said, He means your image too.
Yes. I think studying the Word, and I would almost challenge someone, but I can't let go of that thing. Or I can't not do that thing. Just preparing for this, and it's just personally a few weeks of kind of a little struggle I'm having. It was, Lord, I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. And then the other thing was in a career kind of that is based on the things on the wall and the CV. How many things have you written, and how many places have you done this, and how many?
Yes.
And I looked on my kitchen counter one day, and there were 6 thank you notes. And they were for some silly and some fun and some important things, and some of them were just gifts. But He said to me, you cannot hang hearts on the wall.
Amen. Oh, that's so good.
So trying to make an image towards all these people and do all that, He knows the hearts or the things that me and my husband have done to be in someone else's life and to talk about Him. And so to share that, it's almost like now I've ruined it. But if you think that letting go of that one thing is gonna
that's a testimony. That's
be
not
hard to
losing
do,
that.
let it go.
It is. And because those are the things He's going to say, well done, my good and faithful servant. He's not going to say, gosh, your children were the most athletic of all the kids in the school. Well done, my good and faithful servant.
Right.
That is not going to come out of God's mouth. But He will say, you hit this one heart. You did this thing.
Yes.
Well done, my good and faithful servant. And it will not be part of your image.
Nope. Have nothing to do with any of this.
Exactly. So Dee, as we've talked about these things, I think the key, as you said in so many sessions, and we say it over and over again, it is your heart.
Yes.
And as you say as well, Daddy knows your heart.
Yes.
So you might look good to everybody else, but if you don't look good to the Father, it has no eternal consequence. These things, as the Bible very clearly says, will be burnt up.
Yep, they're going to go away.
They're all going away. They're very temporary. This is all so temporary. What Susie May thinks of you is temporary. It will all burn away. In just a couple of years, there is the eternal we have to think about.
Yep.
And the eternal will always be the things that are done unto the kingdom. And you are only doing those things if your heart is right. It's why James, you just got to read the book of James. And the book James is just all about getting up in your grill about stuff. And when he does get up in your grill, it's all about your heart. He says over and over again in that book, this is about your heart. This is about your heart. You need to make sure your motivations are exactly what they should be. And that is true of any kind of idolatry, but in particular, an image idolatry. And you're going to be miserable all the image. I know I had so many images I can't even count them.
Right.
And in the worst time of my life, and I was miserable.
So then let some of those images go.
It's so exhausting.
Phew.
You're juggling a 50, depending on who you are with or what you think they want, you got to make sure to portray this to them.
Right.
It's blooming exhausting.
Yeah.
But when you drop all of that, you drop all the plates, you drop all the balls, and you just understand your heart is for Christ and your image there has nothing to do with anything other than the way you reflect Christ. We are his image bearers. We bear the image of Christ. That's the only thing that matters. So if that is the only thing that matters to you, the only things you'll feel are love, peace, joy, contentment, and harmony. Those are the things you're going to feel because that comes from correct motivation.
And they're going to come in. They're going to
Yes.
reflect out. People are going to wonder, how did you get that image?
Yes, exactly. That's the image they're going to be drawn to because it ain't you, it's Christ. This is not easy stuff. It is. You have to battle your flesh man all the time, and you're going to be battling a heart that is not inclined toward these things. But as you've said, and as I've said, it requires practice. You stay in the Word. You keep talking to the Lord. You meditate on things that He talks about in terms of what these things are important, and then make those your focus. It does take practice. It's something that you can do. I mean, goodness gracious, I was the worst.
We're here to tell you, you can do this. Kind of like an infomercial. Just keep doing it.
Honestly, if there's anybody that could attest to image being nothing but a life sucker, it's me. But understanding the lack of joy there and the perfection in joy when you let that go. So we'll pray for you, pray for us. Again, this all honors the Lord, and we just pray that this is something that's helped you. We'll see you next time. God bless you. Thank you for joining me today on this episode of Real Life with Deb Waterbury. I hope it's been a blessing to you as much as it was to me. If you want any of my books or information on articles or any of my speaking engagements, you can go to my website at debwaterbury.com. God bless you.